Hi, and welcome to Thursday Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And coming soon from Image Comics, Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. You can pre-order those books by following the pre-order links in the show notes below. So this is a very special issue of Journey into Mystery with the Mighty Thor. Issue 120, In My Hand, This Hammer. I'll show you why it's so special. I knew that here in the great blast furnaces of Pittsburgh, I would find a giant forge to mend my hammer. Thor did in an hour what would have taken us a month. Whew, I can almost believe he is the god of thunder. So yeah, this is the very special issue where Thor goes to Pittsburgh. There's only one place on Earth where Thor can properly fix his broken hammer, and that's in the steel mills of Pittsburgh. He's even got a little bit of like a Pittsburgh Pirates, Pittsburgh Steelers, Pittsburgh Penguins color scheme going here. Written in the fire of inspiration by Stan Lee, drawn in the flame of dedication by Jack Kirby, inked in the heat of devotion by Vince Colletta, lettered in the other room by Artie Simic. And as always, Jack Kirby is more than just the drawer of this comic, he's also the co-writer. And to top it all off, we get a beautiful Jack Kirby photo collage of the steel mills of Pittsburgh. There it is done, my hammer can strike once more. I'd sure like to see him toss that thing. How about it, Thor? Man, the Mets would trade their whole first team for a guy who can do that. I think they missed an opportunity here. Instead of talking about the Mets, if they talked about the Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates, I think that would be a little more accurate. That would add a little more local color to this story. When Thor goes back to Manhattan, I can see a guy in the crowd talking about the Mets, but I think this guy's a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. So he goes out and he shakes hands with a bunch of the mill workers. One of them's probably my wife's grandfather. And we just see ST here. So this is this building probably says steel something or other. He hurls his hammer, and then before you know it, he's out of Pittsburgh. And he lands, we're not sure quite where this forest is where he lands. I would assume it's not too far from Pittsburgh, somewhere in the Appalachians, but I think some of the developments that happen in later issues mean that like he might actually be on the other side of the world, that there might be a lot of distance covered in the gutter between these two panels. But anyway, he lands, takes a little look at the bag of Norn stones, contemplates them. There's some bunnies in the background, and a little bird lands in his hand. Makes me think of that Silver Surfer poster where he's sitting with a lion. It's always fun when these superheroes are next to animals, like a religious figure. And then he flies back off again, but one of the stones drops out of the bag and he doesn't notice. And so this is going to pay off in later issues. And so he's back in Asgard. He hands Odin the bag, this final proof that he was right and Loki was wrong. And now we cut back to Loki in his punishment as the sorcerer's apprentice to the warlock Ularak. But Loki's got some plans. He sprays him with some kind of mystical knockout gas and puts him in this glass sphere and lowers him down into a pit. Somewhat reminiscent of the first issue of The Sandman, of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And Loki is gloating here because now not only does he have all the magic and spells and tricks that he's accumulated in his lifetime, he also has Ularak, the warlock's spells and books and scrolls at his disposal now. So he's unstoppable. Thor is, back home in Asgard, but he doesn't feel at home there. He wants to go back to Earth, and he asks his father, and he's like, so be it. So he flies back to Earth. This panel's interesting. I feel like Vinny probably left some stuff out in the inking. So the panel feels a little off balance. But again, you read enough comics, and it's like everything's a little too balanced. So it's kind of nice when somebody does something that's kind of quirky, when there's an image that isn't that is off balance. It kind of stands out, and not in a bad way. So I actually kind of like this panel, even though I'm pretty sure it's not faithful to Kirby's intent. So he gets back to his office, but it's strangely, eerily empty. We get this nice close up. I don't think we've seen this kind of view before of his transformation. Again, Kirby, always looking for ways to change things up. He's back in Don Blake mode, but he's got his danger. He seems like he's got his spidey sense going. Say, it's Dr. Blake. We all wondered where you've been, Doctor. So everybody's kind of surprised to see him. And he comes back in. His office is a mess. There's, letters stacked up. And Jane Foster was supposed to arrange things in his absence, get another doctor to sort of fill in for him, but it doesn't seem like any of that's done. Then his landlord shows up with his hand out. I need, the last couple months' rent. Again, that was something that he had arranged for Jane Foster to keep track of. So now he's really worried that Jane's gone. He passes by one of his old patients who's sort of giving him the brush off. She's moved on to a different doctor. And yeah, he's really worried. Taps his cane, turns into Thor. The landlord's still following him. And he's like, if you're looking for a man with a cane, he just took the elevator down. And now he's got to get out of there. He finds a spot in the middle of the street where he can swing his hammer and fly away to Avengers headquarters, where he can get help from his friends, the Avengers, to find Jane Foster. But he finds a room full of strangers. In his absence, the Avengers have changed their roster in a famous issue, and this is some of the really great signatures of the kind of comics Jack Kirby and Stan Lee were doing, and it's this kind of stuff that is continued to this day. The idea of a rotating roster of heroes in these super groups, breakups and coming back together. Thor doesn't like this new breed of superhero. It is nothing. You cannot help me. I shall be on my way again. Through many battles have I fought shoulder to shoulder with the old Avengers, but these new, brash, arrogant youngsters, I cannot bring myself to request the aid of such as they. So we're having a generation gap here, and this thing of this new, young group of superheroes and the old guard kind of, pining for the glories of days of old. It kind of reminds me of, the 90s and the Image Comics guys and Youngblood, this brash young super team. But again, we're seeing them through the eyes of Thor. So this is how Thor views them, as sort of upstarts. And he is just really fed up. Something about this new crew rubs him the wrong way, and he flies off. And in a lot of ways, this issue is kind of like a filler. We just had, this big grand epic that's sort of been wrapped up here. And then we're kind of winding up to the next big epic, but we're not there yet. So it's kind of like an in-between issue. It's kind of, and Thor is kind of, not sure what to do. And I wonder if it's true of the creative team as well. They're kind of trying to line up the pieces, trying to figure out what their next big move is going to be, and maybe even vamping a little bit. But it's a lot of fun. It feels very real. It feels very like we're getting a slice of this superhero's life, and that not every moment of his life is some titanic battle. There's a rhythm to it. There's peaks and valleys, and this is actually a really interesting, really fun way to have a sort of change of pace and setting the pins back up for your next big adventure. And so we find Jane Foster. She looks pretty different. She's platinum blonde as opposed to the brown hair that she's had previously. Will I ever see Don Blake again, or will the love in my heart turn to ashes forever? Suddenly, a firm, cold hand grips her shoulder as a deep, expressionless voice mutters, "You must forget him. You must put him out of your life. You have no other choice." And so we'll have to wait another issue to find out who that guy is. And now there's this meteor shower of great cosmic bullets streaking down, like the alpha bullets we saw in the Forever People #7. This is where Kirby is worth his weight in gold. Creates this very exciting looking sci-fi device that Loki's operating, and he's looking for somebody off in space. This sort of gaseous form, and he's found him. and he's sending a beam to kind of put this guy back together. You get some ads for others. Lots of cool stuff going on in the other comics. Loki is pleased. His plan is clicking into place. And we have a movie star being interviewed out here. Again, just a whole variety of things happening in this issue. And I really like it. It just feels very, very alive. If you were like charting it on some kind of traditional ideas about plot structure and storytelling, it might not, it might not be lining up with the rules of how these things are supposed to be done. But Kirby's kind of just letting it flow, and it's unfolding in very interesting ways that are not typical of the sort of plot heavy notions of what a comic book is at this time. And Thor's still kind of hanging around, sort of restless, trying to find Jane Foster. And then this ball is landing, this spheroid, and it's starting to morph. And then it breaks, and we see inside it's the absorbing man. That's the gaseous figure. That's the last time we saw him. He was just a puff of smoke floating through space forever. The last time he dealt with Thor, and now Loki's brought him back to Earth, and he is ready to kick some ass. And so we have this great cliffhanger at the end. Feels very modern. Feels like something you'd see in a comic from the 90s, the early 2000s, maybe even today. It doesn't feel like something you'd see in a comic before this. These are, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee innovations, like really taking advantage of the serialized format. They're not guessing anymore. They have a successful comic, and they know that there is going to be a next issue. It's not going to get canceled, and that they have a following, and they can kind of leave plot threads dangling, which is what they've been doing for the past however many issues. Looks like he's got kind of like a disco ball on the end there. Look at this stuff. And next episode, we're going to review the Journey into Mystery Annual. And now we have Tales of Asgard set sail. It's been this long, big buildup for the past few installments of Tales of Asgard, and now the ship is finally setting sail. Odin says, "In the hallowed name of Asgard, by the glory of the eternal bridge, I grant thee fair winds and cloudless skies. So long as ye voyage through my domain. The time has come, let the sails be unfurled." And here goes the Odin ship flying off. The women of Asgard, heroic, lusty young men, going off to adventure. They are sad. They will miss them. And Volstagg is, bidding farewell to the ladies he'll be leaving behind. "Be of good cheer, fairest flowers in all of Asgard. We shall return. We shall bring thee gifts and rare treasures from the furthest reaches of the universe. Yea, Volstagg shall be the greatest hero of all, and I shall embrace each of thee in thy turn, for my heart is filled with love." But then the blustering, boisterous giant sees a sight that makes his very blood run cold. "Back! Let me back, thou craven scoundrels!" "What madness is this, Volstagg? I thought thou feared neither man nor beast." "In truth I do not, but that is neither man nor beast. It is my wife. A damsel good and true is she, but she understands not a warrior's yearning for adventure. Well might you hide, trembling one. Her face hath the fury of 1,000 storms." So there's Mrs. Volstagg. And Loki gives Volstagg the boot, and Thor tells him to calm down. "Enough, half-brother. No crewman of mine will be treated thus while Thor is in command. They are our fellow warriors, not serfs upon which you may vent your wrath." And now this guy shows up ready to stab Thor in the back, this guy who later shows up in the Masters of the Universe movie. But a knife is thrown that stops him in his tracks, lets him know that he's being watched. "Stay thy hand, base assassin. Who dares? I dare. Hogun the Grim, the silent warrior who has never lost a battle, whose heart is said to be colder than the steel of his blade. He says no more. He merely retrieves his weapon slowly, silently. The moment has been lost. I shall find another time to strike and to repay Hogan for this insolence as well. So Hogan, who we weren't sure what to make of him, he's got horns and this, demonic bat shape on his head. We didn't know what to make of him, but seems like a good guy. And now they're coasting over this sea. They'll probably, be landing in it momentarily. And back home, Odin's soaking his feet in Epsom salts, wondering, "How think you, master of prophecy? Was my decision a wise one? More than that, sire, it was the only one thou couldst make." What decision does noble Odin refer to? What shadowy secrets are hidden beneath the surface of Odin's great voyage? We swear by Asgard's golden spires that the quest will continue next issue, and we'll face it together, so be it. Between the main story and this Tales of Asgard, this is a very, in medias res issue of Thor. It's probably so far the most Marvel in that it's spinning out of a lot of, complex storylines that have been running for a while and heading towards, other more complex storylines without, any kind of central big, storyline in this issue, but still super interesting and lots of great little incidents and thematic elements and, this assassination attempt on Thor that's been thwarted. Really amazing stuff. I'm more hooked than I've ever been in this read through. Kudos to the whole creative team. And here's Dr. Don Blake selling Thor t-shirts. The whole country is going t-shirt wild. I guess t-shirts were a new thing back then. And if you've already received yours, you'll know why. They're bold, bright, and beautiful, and exclusively Marvel. They're so in that even the few remaining Brand Ech fans have been ordering them like crazy. So if you haven't done it yet, send for yours now. You never know when company will drop in. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee. And coming soon from Image Comics, Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, starring Adam Starr and the Solar Legion. All of those books are available for pre-order by following the pre-order links in the show notes below. I'll see you next Thursday.